Chia sithlale, hashtathema, chia sithlale ka. Himo nasiano, ispiu palashke, ispiu palashke, ishminti polacha, ispiu palashke. Ayupanchi iti papashi. Welcome my brothers and sisters. Welcome my relatives. This is another series in the sermons of the Native American Church of the Ghost Dancers. And today I intend to speak a little bit about the three principal pillars of our church. And just like there are three hearthstones in a Native American hearth, there are three principal pillars in our church. Each one I will delineate much more fully in future sermons, but I'm just going to introduce them very briefly now so that there's some kind of a introductory aspect to them. The first is the Native American Church medicine way, and it principally comprises an age-old ceremony from Peyote churches throughout the Americas, in what is now the United States and the nation-state of Mexico. These are old formats that came through, and then they were sort of structured in a more formalized manner in the early years of the 20th century by people such as Quanah Parker in the Half Moon Ceremony and John Wilson in the Big Moon Ceremony. And then other groups such as the Dene or Navajo had their version. But the format is pretty much standardized insofar as there usually is a structure with the entranceway towards the east, and the principal officers are seated in the west. They file in, everybody files in a clockwise fashion. They always move in this Dio-seal fashion, which is the order of the direction of the sun. They follow the direction of the sun. The principal officers are normally the Hatakina or roadman, which I'll explain why he's called that and who he is more thoroughly in a future sermon. And to the north, or on his left, is the drum man. To the right is the cedar man, or to the south. And to the just inside the doorway, on the northeast position, is the fireman. He attends to the fire. The drum man tends to the water drum and ties up the water drum. The water drum, by the way, is usually made in the form of a cast iron or ceramic kettle without handles, and it's tied up with 7 posts or 7 stones that tie it up. In the center of the water drum, it's filled up with about 4 inches of water, and 3 flint objects are placed in there to channel the lightning, the water, and the air, and then the sound is the thunder from the drum. It's tied up in a special way so that it's taught throughout the nightly ceremony, which it comprises the whole night, as well as being tied in this heptagonic or heptagrammic 7-pointed star configuration. The next arm of the, I'll talk a lot more thoroughly about that in a future ceremony and in a future sermon, and I'll give some examples of how these peyote songs that are sung during the ceremony are derived. The next arm of the church is the ghost dancing, which was a pan-indigenous ceremony throughout the Americas for thousands of years. It was conducted principally in these plazas in Mesoamerica and the Mississippi Valley, and in the plateau area, it's very famously was conducted by the ghost dance prophet Wovoka during the last part of the 19th and the early part of the 20th century. And Wovoka principally derived the dance from the Naraya ceremony, or the circle dance of the Shoshone people, the Paiute Shoshone people. He was also moderately affected by John Slocum's Shaker group when he would go to Oregon to visit some of his Ute and Paiute relatives who were involved in that group in the Oregon area. The last pillar of the church that forms the central column is that of Indian masonry, Choctaw horse masonry and Indian masonry, which was formally, probably the oldest formally established ritual tradition in the United States. It was formally established in 1848 in Indian Territory and subsequently recognized by all the lodges of Masonic lodges throughout the world. And it principally acted as a bastion of protection for Indian ritualism in the latter part of the 18th and 19th century, when there was a huge move to repress and exterminate Indian Native American traditions and ethnicities. So those are the three principal arms to our church and organization, which I will be speaking a great deal more about each one of these in sermons in the future. Achukmar ishanyashke, nanayahosh, ishnoashke, ikebabishi, nanayahosh.